shortly. So any plans this summer? So we got a boxing camp. Somebody DM me vacation in Turks and Caicos. Ooh, that's fun. When you going to Turks? We went there 4 years ago. Turks is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. Oh, going in 2 weeks. Okay, going in 2 weeks. All right, fun times, fun times. All right. So as more people pop in, let us know where you guys are from and what are your plans for the rest of the summer. So we got one person going to Turks for vacation, one person coming down to Florida for a boxing camp for their sons. Anybody else have anything interesting that they're going to do? And then, of course, we'll get started here shortly. So, again, where you guys are from in the chat, and then also work. That's why you make all the big bucks, Mr. Anderson. You know, you don't gotta work, but yeah, so cool. It keeps you healthy. it keeps you healthy. Said work. That's funny. That's funny. So we'll get started here at 12:05 on the dot to talk about the big beautiful bill and the pros and cons and what we can do to take advantage of the big beautiful bill, the good things in it, and also the not so good things in it, because the big beautiful bill is not. It's big and bold and beautiful for some people and ugly for others. So we'll talk about that as well. Okay, Catalina Island, Cali. Is that like Cali, like in Colombia or California? Catalina Island. Oh, that sounds tropical. Catalina Island. That sounds very tropical. Okay, Ty. Fun times. Oh, California. Okay, that's a long flight from here. From here to is that direct or is that does you have a layover? That's a long flight. Long flight. I heard I've never been to Hawaii, but people say Hawaii is like the longest flight. I've never been to Hawaii. But everybody, well, people I've talked to went to Hawaii said like it was like almost 24 hours. I'm like, gosh, because I guess you got to do two stops. That is a long time. So, anybody went to Hawaii, let me know if the flight's that long. But it's in America though, like so Hawaii is great because do customs. But yeah. All right, preparing for annual enrollment period. Oh, annual enrollment. Oh, Terrence. Fun times for you, Terrence, for annual enrollment. Fun times, stressful times, but then of course you're able to help people and be compensated for it. So annual enrollment. All right, we'll get started in 2 more minutes as you guys pop in, where you guys are from, and then also what exciting things you're doing this summer. And we'll get started on a big, beautiful bill and how we can take advantage of it as business owners, as retirees, as W-2 employees as well. It doesn't take that. Okay, Sean said, don't take that long to get to Hawaii. Oh, my bad. Maybe somebody was flying on Spirit. Maybe they had a couple layovers for Frontier, but I never been to Hawaii though. I heard Hawaii is beautiful though. But I'm in Jacksonville too, so if a person's like in California, then it might be a lot. It might be a lot shorter. But here, you think about Florida to, I guess California, or if it's a layover. I don't know. I don't know. But that is a place I need to go to though. It's Hawaii. I've been to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is beautiful. If anybody's been to Puerto Rico, let me know. But Puerto Rico was beautiful. Like Puerto Rico, it felt like the Caribbean, but it was in America, so it was pretty cool. So we had to worry about going through customs and things were definitely inexpensive. Oh, Billy, you're from Puerto Rico. I thought you was from Miami, Billy. I didn't know you was from Puerto Rico. Okay, you're from Puerto Rico. Okay, do you go back any? I thought you was from my. Oh, so you must live in Miami, Billy. I thought you was from Miami, from Puerto Rico. Okay, yeah, not yeah. Oh, you live in Orlando. Okay, but your parents are still in Puerto Rico. Okay, yeah, yeah. We did Puerto Rico for my wife's 40th birthday a few years ago. She's always 40 now, right? So, but yeah, Puerto Rico is beautiful. Puerto Rico is beautiful. All right, my moderators, if you guys can allow me to have screen sharing access, and we'll get started. And as people pop in, let us know. Let me know, and we'll get started about the big beautiful bill. Wow, $200 round trip to Puerto Rico. Well, that's a deal. That's a deal. I forgot how much. Well, we used our points for the ticket, so luckily we didn't have to pay. But that's cheap. $200 round trip to go to Puerto Rico. You can't beat that. Cannot beat that. All righty. So if you guys see my screen, let's put a 1 in the chat, and we'll get started here with the big beautiful bill. So let's put a 1 in the chat if you guys see my screen. And again, as people pop in, definitely. Okay, how do I present? Present mode. You see my screen. Now if I could present. All right, here we go. Full screen, please. Full screen. Come on, Canva. Come on, Canva. Do you like me? Do you like me enough to do full screen? There we go. Yay. All right. So the big beautiful bill and what it means, right? So we had a record-breaking deal last week. I know it's been kind of going back and forth between Congress and Senate, but it was passed last week, of course, signed by President Trump. It gives a lot of people tax breaks. It's basically moving wealth. People talk about redistribution of wealth, right? One political party talks about that more than another, but this is a huge redistribution of wealth. So we're going to talk about that. And then also, how we can help us if we are a business owner, if we are a senior and retired, if we're on Medicare, kind of the things there. So how we can actually use this to our advantage. And then we're also going to talk about the not so good things about the bill so we can be prepared so we know what's going on. But then also, if you're a business owner, you can definitely, let your clients know how they will be affected, unfortunately, in a negative way. All right. But before we get started, though, I want to kind of do a progress report. So, a lot of people here, give me the opportunity, to help them grow their portfolio. And I definitely appreciate the support. So kind of want to go over just an investment progress report in general. Progress report is usually half the year, and we're a little bit past half the year. We're kind of going to go over just from an investment standpoint. So we have the Dow Jones. Now, so when we think about investing, you basically have 4 pillars, right? We have our most conservative index, and then we have our most aggressive index, right? So think about a pyramid, right? So the bottom of the pyramid is like the least risk, and the top of the pyramid is the most risk, right? So the bottom of the pyramid is the Dow Jones. So in the Dow Jones or the Dow 30, that's the original kind of index 120 years ago when the stock market first started. Yeah, the market's been around for 120 years, believe it or not. So that's like the least amount of risk. So for the year, that index, so basically the top 30 stocks in the Dow Jones, that's up by 3.4%, which means if a person had $100, or let's say 100,000, today they made $3,400. Now, if you compare that to a money market account, most money market accounts for the year are paying 4%. So the most conservative stock market index has made almost as much as a money market for only half the year. And then you have the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is the top 500 stocks in America, and that's kind of like the benchmark. That's kind of what we look at. So when we talk about managing money, you look at the S&P 500. If a person has an annuity, the stock market investment inside that annuity is the S&P 500. That's like the benchmark of what we look at to compare it to. That's up by 6.5% this year. So I had $100,000. I've made $6,500. Now, if I do have an annuity, it's very, very important that you look at the cap to cap, because with annuities, you typically don't get all of the growth of the S&P 500. Most annuities have a cap in between 8 to 10%. So let's say if the S&P 500 makes 6%, or if I got 100,000, I have made 6,000 in the S&P 500. My annuity have only made 3,000 because we usually get half up to 8%. So just remember that with an annuity. Annuities in some instances are good, but then just remember when we do an annuity, we don't get all of the upside of the market. Not saying annuities are the worst thing in the world, but just you want to remember that. But if you do have an annuity and you want to be invested, you definitely want to look at the S&P 500 inside that annuity. We have the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is up by basically 9% this year. The NASDAQ, in my opinion, is the new S&P 500. And from an index fund standpoint, this is the index fund that you want to look at. of course, for all my clients is a recommendation because, I manage our money. For other people, it's just more information. But definitely, go back down, Mario, go back down. What are we doing? Too far, too far. But yeah, so the NASDAQ is more of a, in my opinion, now the new benchmark because most of the tech companies, tech runs the stock market, tech doubles from like an efficiency standpoint every 6 months. So tech is here to stay. So we look at the NASDAQ more as an indicator of the market, not the S&P 500, but it's up by 9% this year. So a person had $100,000 in the NASDAQ index fund, or the symbol is QQQ. And as I take a step back, the Dow Jones, if you want to do an index fund in the Dow Jones, that symbol is DIA. So my moderators, y'all can put that into the chat. D is in dog, I is in India, A is in alpha, DIA. That is an index fund for the Dow Jones. The index fund for the S&P 500, that symbol is SPY. So S is in Sam, P is in Paul, Y is in yellow, SPY. That's an index fund for the S&P 500. The NASDAQ index fund is symbol QQQ. So Quebec, QQQ, that's for the NASDAQ. And then the Russell 2000. The Russell 2000, this is the most aggressive index. That's the top 2,000 companies from a small cap standpoint. So small cap investments make the most money when interest rates go down. So last year, the Russell 2000 did very well. In 2023, it did very well as well. But right now, it's down by 1.5%. So this is why it's important to be diversified, because if you look at last year, you would say, oh, the Russell did very good. I'm going to put my money into the Russell. Well, this year, the Russell's not doing too good. So it's always good to diversify between indexes. And the index fund for the Russell, that symbol is IWM. So India, Whiskey, Mario, IWM. And that's for the Russell. All right. So then for us, from our clients, of course, kind of how we manage money. We manage money 4 different ways: conservative, moderate, growth, and aggressive. Our conservative portfolio that is linked to the Dow Jones. So we want to basically double, because our goal, now we don't meet it all the time, but we have 8 of the last 11 years. Our goal is to double whatever the index is, right? So for a person's conservative, their index is the Dow Jones. So the Dow Jones is up by 4% this year, or 3.4%. Our conservative portfolio is up by 8%. So on $100,000 so far, our clients have made $8,000 a year, minus them putting in money or minus them taking out money. So we've definitely been doubling so far this year our benchmark, which is the Dow Jones. The moderate portfolio is something that's moderate, that's compared to the S&P 500. Our moderate portfolio is up by 14.1% this year, when the S&P is up by 6.5%. So again, our moderate portfolio has doubled the stock market. Kind of our goal is basically double. Growth, the NASDAQ is up by 9%. Our growth portfolio is up by 19.4%. So again, we're doubling what our benchmark of the market's doing. So the Lord works miracles, right? Working a miracle through us, doubling the market. And then the aggressive portfolio, even though the Russell is down, our aggressive portfolio was up by 27%. So literally, person had $100,000 in our aggressive portfolio. They've made $27,000 this year so far, not including money that they've taken out or money they put in. So it's just amazing kind of how we manage money internally, buying things, selling things. The market averages 9% a year. And in our aggressive portfolio, in 6 months, we've done what it takes for the market to do in 3 years. We've done it in 6 months. So it's just pretty incredible how we've been helping people so far. And the last thing, kind of the top, now, not a recommendation from a stock standpoint, because as we know, stocks go up and down. How we manage stocks, we use the shadow method. And I know, for our clients, we talk about this all the time, but just in general, what is the shadow method? So the shadow method is that just like a shadow, right? If I am walking and it's hot outside, which means the stock market's up, it's hot, right? We can see my shadow. That's a good thing. But the shadow method is you making changes to your investments when it gets dark. Because when it gets dark, what happens with the shadow? It goes away. You can't see it anymore. So with us, when things are going good and the market is trending up, right, we have 70% of a person in an index fund and the other 30% in stocks tied to that index. When things are not going good and when our shadow is starting to disappear, we automatically kind of sell those index funds, right? And we sell, right? And by doing that, it allows us to prayerfully sell high and buy low. We did this back in February. I know we talked about it on the call, but in February, we sold about 20% of all our clients' money out the market when Trump talked about Liberation Day and the tariffs, right? So by doing that, by selling high, and then back in April after Liberation Day, buying low as the market has recovered, as you can see, our portfolios have doubled the market because we sold high and bought low. So anybody that kind of wants to have a strategy on how to invest, I recommend the shadow method. And again, depending on your risk, between 50 to 90%, but I'll just say 70%. 70% of your money, can or should be in an index fund. And then the other 30% should be in stocks inside that index fund to take advantage of the winners and losers. So that's kind of the shadow method. That is kind of what we do. What happened to my screen? What happened to my Zoom screen? I think I lost my Zoom screen, y'all. Hold on for 1 second. Zoom. Where my Zoom at? I'm sorry. Hold on, you guys. I lost my Zoom screen. I don't know where it is. Where's your Zoom at, Mario? Where's your Zoom at? All right, here we go. Okay, cool. I'm back. That was weird. All right, cool. So yeah. So any questions on the shadow method? Any questions again from the shadow method, kind of how, you might want to think about managing the money? No questions? All right.
Yes, I do. The percentage you mentioned something. You mentioned something about do 30% one way and then 30% one way and then 70% the other way inside the shadow method. Can you go over that again, real?
Great question. Yeah. So it depends on risk. So it depends on your risk tolerance, or if you're in the industry, your client's risk tolerance. So it depends on is more conservative, then it should be 50 to 60% in the market period than the rest, like in the money market fund or whatever the case may be. So it just kind of depends on the risk. But in general, for every $100 that would be invested, right? So let's say, okay, I have this $100 that needs to be invested per their risk tolerance. We typically do, if they're conservative, closer to 50%, if they're aggressive, closer to 90%. But let's just say 70. You have a person that's moderate. They want to make money in the stock market, but they don't want to lose as much. So they're more closer aligned to the Dow Jones, or they're more closer aligned to the S&P 500. Not to the NASDAQ and not to the Russell, that's more expensive. Then that should be 70%. So if I have $100, $70 should be towards an index fund, and then the other $30 should be in stocks. Now those stocks is very important. Those stocks should be in stocks. Now those stocks is very important. Those stocks should be the stocks that's inside that index. So let's say, for example, Tesla. I know Elon Musk, we got people that love him, hate him. It is what it is, right? But Tesla would be a stock that a person might want to look at if they are basing it off of the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. Amazon is another one. So like you have your buckets of index funds, because index funds are more conservative way to invest. But then if you kind of cherry pick the stocks that you think are going to do better than everything else, it gives you opportunity to over time kind of make more than the market, right? So I would say that 70-30 split, where 70% are in index funds, and then the other 30% are in those stocks inside those index funds to kind of give you that bump in return. Does that kind of help answer your question? You have me on mute, Mark. But just put a one in the chat if that helps answer your question. All right, cool. Great question. Any other questions? All right, cool. If you guys have questions, you can just put into the chat, of course. So yeah. So then, of course, then for the year, now from an allocation standpoint, as I talk about the shadow method, we have, again, nobody gets it right all the time, but this year we've gotten it definitely right. So our biggest holding is MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is up by 52%. Now, for a person that is thinking about getting into Bitcoin, this is a way to get into Bitcoin, but have some more growth because it's a treasury of Bitcoin. Now, me personally, as I talk about all the time, I think Bitcoin is the future. Bitcoin in my personal portfolio is between Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, and Solana is more than 60%. So for every $100 I have invested in the market, more than $60 is in cryptocurrency on the market. So yeah. Now for clients, we don't do no more than 20% because cryptocurrency is volatile. But anyways, MicroStrategy is a way to get into Bitcoin, not having Bitcoin directly, but it's up by 52% this year. I mean, again, the market's up by 6, it's up by 52. That says it's for itself. Palantir. Palantir is one of the stocks of the year. It's basically doubled. Palantir is it's like Lockheed Martin, but with tech. So they provide analysis and data to militaries across the world to basically have a more effective way to fight and have war, which is crazy to think about, but war is power and power is money. Our defense in the U.S., we spend most of our money on defense, and Palantir got a huge contract. They're working now with Canada. They're going to get in between a $1.5 to $2.5 billion contract with Canada, and they're actually having negotiations now with the UK. So this stock, not a recommendation, but this stock might triple literally over the next year. So we definitely was early adopters into this. CleanSpark, which is a mining company, is up by 32%, and Oklo, our fourth largest holding, this up by 188, almost 200%. It almost has 3x this year, and this is tied to President Trump. So President Trump loves nuclear. I don't know why, but that's his opinion, and he gave this company a lot of money to basically refit nuclear power plants. So as they continue to get government money and as they start turning a profit, this stock can easily go up by another 100, 200% over the next 3 years while President Trump's in office. So again, not recommendations, but kind of the stocks that we pick inside that shadow method that I talked about. All right, so that's that. So that's kind of the progress report. But now we're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill and what are some things we can do. So one of the things in the bill that was passed that we can do is a bonus depreciation reinstatement. So what is bonus depreciation? So bonus depreciation is if we have rental property or we are a business owner, we have equipment that we buy, we can depreciate that equipment by 100%. And depreciation is usually over a 5-year time period. So let's say I buy something, a piece of equipment, it costs $10,000. Typically the IRS gives that back to me in depreciation over a 5-year time period. Now I can get it all back in 1 year, which means the first year I just get a very, very large tax deduction. So I could retroactively do 100% bonus depreciation. It applies to vehicles. If you have a car and your car is 51% more of business. For real estate agents, anybody here who does real estate, if you're making money or not making money in real estate, this is huge for you guys because in real estate, you're always driving. You're always thinking about real estate. So for anybody doing real estate, this is huge because now next time you buy a car, you can depreciate and get the price of that car back from a tax deduction all in 1 year. This is great. Also renovations. If I have a house and I have some type of side job, even though if the side job's not making a lot of money, the renovations I make on my house, not whatever side job I have. Even if I'm an Uber driver, that's a side job. But now, since I'm making changes to my house, right, and I use my house as a home office deduction, which everybody should do. Anybody here that has any type of business, you should be doing the home office deduction. And with the home office deduction now, the renovations, you can actually get some of that back from a tax standpoint, which is just amazing if you use the tax code properly. So it's a huge savings for business owners. You get to write off assets the year that you buy them. And then also they did this to encourage rapid investment. So this is a real example. I had a conversation with a client literally yesterday. They have a rental property. They work at Johnson & Johnson. So it's, everybody knows Johnson & Johnson. So they are a W-2 employee, but they have 2 rental properties. So, the majority of their income is working, punching the time clock, but they do have two rental properties. So with one of the rental properties, it was a washer and dryer set that they bought early this year, right? So it was basically for $4,000. And now they're able to depreciate this, but the old rule was they was able to depreciate this over 5 years. So that $4,000 they spent, they get that back from a tax deduction over a 5-year time period. Now with the new rule, we're now able to depreciate that wash and dryer all in 1 year. So from a tax savings standpoint, they're going to get this year an additional $960 of tax savings. So before, at 60%, it would have been over 5 years. And over 5 years, it would have only been $576. So over 5 years, they get $576. But because of the tax bill and how they updated the bonus depreciation, they get all $960 back this year. So for anybody that has a rental property, this is great because now you're able to do things tax deduction. So if you're anybody that's an advisor or insurance agent that allows us to help them, right? This is something that you want to tell your clients as well because it allows anybody that has any type of rental property or again a side gig and they're doing things at their house, it allows them to use the tax code to their advantage and have just a lot more write-offs. So instead of waiting 5 years to get the full benefit. So that is basically the bonus depreciation. Any questions on the bonus depreciation when it comes to how it works? If you have questions, if you can apply it to your business, or if you are working and you have a side job, if you want to see how you can apply it, you can definitely ask a question and I can answer that before I get to the next one. And you can either put it into the chat or you can just ask. No question with the bonus depreciation? All right. So actually, let's put a 1 in the chat. Who has used the bonus depreciation? So anybody that's a business owner or does real estate, put a 1 in the chat if you have ever used the bonus depreciation when you've done your taxes. Okay. Well, of course, Katrina, we know because you're a tax professional. That's funny. Katrina from Detroit. And I'm gonna get with you today, Katrina. I just got back from my cruise. I know we talked, so we definitely want to get everything all squared away. Bella in the house, yeah, of course, Bella, because you're a financial advisor, right, Bella? If I'm not mistaken. So of course, Bella, you better have used the the bonus depreciation. Cool. Well, yeah. So very very important, you guys. The bonus depreciation is a way for you to truly take advantage of the tax code. So for the people that have not put a 1 in the chat, if you have rental property or if you have some type of side gig, side job, even if it's like a Schedule C where you're sole proprietorship, you have to take advantage of the bonus depreciation. It is money that the IRS wants to give you. But if you don't take advantage of it, then we're all taxpayers. So we want to make sure you take advantage of it. So you guys can definitely email. Okay, Marvin used it as well. So you guys can email me or ask a question if you have like a particular question about how to use it in your situation. But everybody on this call should be taking advantage of the bonus depreciation. Got to be taking advantage of it. All right, so that's that. Then we have the expansion of a 529 plan. So what a 529 plan is, it's a way that we can put money into an account. It's usually with the mutual fund company. That account grows tax-free. And if we take the money out, as long as it's used for school or college-related activities, it's tax-free. So yeah, and there's pros and cons about having a 529 plan. The pros about having a 529 plan, you are able to invest the money and have it grow tax-free. And then when you take it out, you don't pay taxes if it's used for college or educational expenses up to $10,000 K through 12. The cons, because there's pros and cons everything. The cons of a 529 plan is that it's only through mutual fund companies. So like if I want to do a Bitcoin ETF like IBIT, or if I want to do Ethereum or cryptocurrency, if I want to do stocks like Peloton or Microsoft, I can't do that in a mutual fund account. I can buy the mutual fund, but the mutual fund has that stock and 100 other different stocks, and it's not managed like it would be a stock. So historically, the rate of return on the 529 plan is not as high as a regular account if it's managed the same, right? But the thought process is I might not make as much money, but I'm having the money grow tax free. So, you just kind of want to think about that with a 529 plan. But the changes, right? So now from K through 12, private school withdrawal limits. Before, it couldn't be for private school. You would have to do a Coverdale ESA. Now you can put money into a 529 plan, have it grow, take it out, not pay taxes, and use that money to pay for public school activities or private school tuition. Doesn't matter what grade. So that's something. Also homeschooling. Our daughter, homeschooled for 3 years. She's now going back to school this year in the 6th grade. We'll see what happens there. but from a homeschooling standpoint, before, if you homeschooled a child, you couldn't use money from a 529 standpoint. Now you can put money into it and have it grow and take it out. And what we've talked to a few people, because I have friends who still homeschool, they're actually going to now pay tutors. So anybody who here, and put a one in the chat if you guys have homeschooled before, so we can kind of see if anybody has homeschooled. But if anybody has homeschooled, it's not the easiest thing, right? You're teaching, you need help. I mean, now luckily my wife has a master's education, so she was able to kind of get through it. But homeschool is tough. But for people who want to homeschool, you can use this money to be invested, grow tax-free, take it out, and use it to pay for a tutor or pay a company to help tutor. They have now virtual AI companies or virtual assistants that do tutoring. So now you can use that money, put it into something, have it grow tax-free, take it out, and use it to pay for tutoring your child who is being homeschooled. So just a great thing with the bill. And again, it's still fairly tax-free when used for qualified expenses. The qualified expense is tutoring, books, if you're in college, room and board, now private tuition, also a car. I talk about this all the time, how if you, and I'll stop my screen to kind of go through the process, right? For anybody that wants to kind of help from a car standpoint, if you put your child on payroll, you can pay them up to $15,000 a year. Now, they don't get the $15,000 if you don't want them to. You just run payroll taxes, but it's a write-off, right? So $15,000, you're going to get back, $3,000-$4,000 from a tax standpoint. That money that you get back taxes, you literally just put that into the 529 plan. If you do that if the child's 5, you do that for 10 years, that's $30,000 with growth. That should be about $60,000 to $65,000. Now the child's 16, right? They need to go to school if they're driving to school. Well, now you just use money from a tax write-off standpoint that the IRS gave you. You put in something that grew tax-free, and now we take out the money and we're able to buy that car at age 16 to go to and from school, because with the tax bill, that is a educational expense. Going to school. How can I go to school? I need a car. Or even for college, if you want to buy a college car, the same thing. So using that strategy by putting your kids or your grandkids, you can put your grandkids on payroll as well, put your grandkids on payroll with that tax deduction, with that money you get back from the IRS, putting that into a 529 plan, letting it grow tax-free, and then using that to buy a car. That's the way that you can literally use the IRS giving you money for something that you're doing anyways and have that to be purchased for a car. Do we kind of understand that thought process? So Eureka, you homeschool. Okay, cool. Awesome. Oh, my screen's blacked out. Oh no, you guys don't see me anymore? Oh boy, what is going on with technology today? Put a one in the chat if you guys see me, because if I'm blacked out, then I gotta have my mods take over. So do you guys still see me? If you guys see me, put a one in the chat. One of my moderators said I was blacked out. Oh, you do not see me. Oh boy. Okay. So let's do this. I'm gonna have my moderators be the host. Oh, you can see me now. Okay. Well, that's weird. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm giving all this good information, and the world doesn't want you guys to get it. So, okay. So, yeah. So my apologies about that. But yeah, so again, it's just a way for you guys to use the tax code to your advantage from a 529 standpoint. All right, then. So cool. So that's that. So the impact. So you can do this with tuition, books, cars, commuting, up to $10,000. So before you had to use a Coverdale ESA. Now you can use your 529 plan, and you can use up to $10,000 for K through 12 activities, either public school or private school. And again, there's no annual federal cap. Now, gift tax rules apply, but gift tax rules up to now $23 million. Ain't nobody hitting that, so that doesn't matter. But it is no federal cap though. Again, the higher withdrawal limits, like I talked about. Oh, I went backwards. So yeah, so that's that. Also, as well, with a 529 plan, before we could only do $13,000 per parent per year. So if I'm a parent or a grandparent, I can put up to $13,000 a year. Two parents, $26,000. Now with the big beautiful bill, they increased that to $18,000. So now I can do $18,000 a year per parent, or $36,000 tax free. It's pretty cool. And again, that money grows if we use it for college or now educational expenses in general. We take that money out as tax free. And also some states, like here in Florida, the great state of Florida, from a tax standpoint, tax free, they allow you to actually do a lump sum, right? So we actually had a conversation last week with a client. I don't know if they're going to do it, but they received a pretty nice size inheritance. So we talked about, from a college funding standpoint, front loading. Instead of doing the 529 plan over years, we front load up to $90,000, because $90,000 at once, growing tax free, is a lot better than doing $90,000 over 5 years tax free, right? Because you have a lump sum of money that should grow more over time than increments of money, right? So now you can front load, or you can put up to $90,000. So if a person receives an inheritance, receives some type of life insurance, has some type of lump sum from the sale of the house, they want to put it from a college funding standpoint, then of course they can front load and put up to $90,000 instead of doing that $36,000 a year. So yeah, so that is that when it comes to a 529 plan. Any questions on a 529 plan or educational plans before we go over other things in the big, beautiful bill? And again, you can either ask the question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself when it comes to 529 plans, or the changes in 529 plans, or how we can implement that if we're a business owner. Okay, cool. All right, thank you, Beverly. Appreciate that. All right, so the next thing in the big, beautiful bill is charitable giving, right? So we now can give more to charity and get more write-offs for it, right? So universal charity deduction will return even people who don't itemize, and this is important. So for our seniors out there, the individuals who do not itemize, because some people do standard deduction, and now the standard deduction is higher as well, which we'll talk about for our seniors. But now, even if you don't itemize, you can do more charitable gifts and get more money back from a tax standpoint. And it goes now from 100% AGI to 60. Well, it was 60% AGI. Now it's 100%, which is your adjusted gross income. So we have AGI, MAGI, or Maggie, not MAGA, but Maggie. So adjusted gross income, kind of what you receive, and then your modified adjusted gross income, which is what we receive kind of after deductions, right? So it's based on the top number, which is good deduction-wise, not the bottom number. So what can we do? So we recommend anybody who wants to do any type of donations, you can use what we talked about a few weeks ago, a charitable living trust. The issue with a charitable living trust, though, is that it's irrevocable. Once I put money into a charitable living trust, can't make any changes. It is what it is. Or you can do what you call a donor advised fund. And I was going to talk about it if people don't know what it is, but put a 1 in the chat if you are not familiar with a donor advised fund. So if you haven't not heard what a donor advised fund is, you never heard of it, or you're interested kind of what it is, then put a 1 in the chat and we can definitely explain that, because it is a way for you guys to have control on somethsomething and get a huge tax write-off because of it if you do it properly. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, so we'll talk about that. Okay, cool. Because y'all know, because we have a lot of people in here. So yeah. So the tip. So layer donations in a donor advised fund to gift now and decide how to give it later. It creates a lasting legacy whenever you maximize your current documents. So you're able to put money into an account Well, actually, here I think. Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great segue. All right. So a donor advised fund, we look at it as like a charitable checking account. Now, of course, from an investment standpoint, we recommend not to do it in a savings or money market account. Invest it, right? Because you can contribute cash and stock, cryptocurrency, if it's in the stock market. So like symbol IBIT, symbol FBTC, those are Bitcoin ETFs you can buy on the stock market. EETH, that is a Ethereum stock that's tied to Ethereum. You can buy on the stock market, so you got to worry about somebody stealing your Ethereum, like it's original cryptocurrency. Now they have Solana. So if you guys want to get some of those riskier cryptocurrencies, Solana, the symbol is SOLZ, where you can buy Solana directly on the stock market, and then XRP, symbol XXRP, on the stock market. So you can buy these cryptocurrency investments if you want to on the stock market and put it into a donor advised fund. You get an immediate tax deduction for the full amount. So if I put $10,000 in a donor advised fund, it's like I am donating $10,000 to a charity or a church, and I get immediate tax write-off. So if I made $100,000 per se, I put $10,000 in the donor advised fund. Now I'm taxed on $90,000, not on $100,000. All right. And so we recommend where the money is donated. So you get to also decide when they get the money. So with a charitable remainder trust that we talked about, once the money's there, it's there, you have no control. With a donor advised fund, even though it's in that fund, since you're the donor, you get to advise when the money is given, right? Because you have full control. So you get all of the tax write-offs like it's a charitable, trust, irrevocable, that you can't make any decisions on. But with the donor advised fund, you get all of that freedom to decide. And then also you get to send it to somebody from a charity standpoint when you want to. So you basically have all the power in the world to do that. So real example, the conversation we had yesterday, I always like to use real examples. I'm blessed to, help thousands of people, across the world. So a real example, right? So, we talked about doing a donor advised fund and kind of when, right? So this person, they're thinking about donating now $50,000 in stock. 2 years ago, it was $25,000 worth, but because again, the investments we've done, that's basically doubled over 2 years. Now it's $50,000. See, the cool thing about a donor advised fund is that since you are able to dictate when you put it in, we recommend you don't put it into that account when you first buy it. You put it in when it appreciates. Because if I have a basis, if I bought a stock for $25,000 and now those stocks are worth $50,000, if I put it into the donor advised fund when it's worth $50,000, I get the full $50,000 of write-offs. Compared to if I put $25,000 in the donor advised fund, if it grows from 25 to 50,000, I don't get to write off that $25,000 as it goes up. I get the first $25,000 write-off, but I don't get any more. So it's important that we, in my opinion, that you have the money kind of stay in your account to kind of get the appreciation. And then when you want to start donating it, then we move that over to the donor advised fund. And by doing it that way, it allows us to get that big old tax write-off. So we put in $25,000 in a stock portfolio. Now it's worth 50. So as they put it into it, it's no capital gains tax, right? So even though it's quote unquote being sold, it's no capital gains tax because it's going directly to the donor advised fund. So they're not paying taxes on the sale, even though it's just being moved over. They get to deduct the full $50,000. They don't deduct the $25,000 that they bought it for. They deduct the full $50,000 worth today. So theoretically speaking, in their case, because they're retired, they make about $80,000. $80,000 with a $50,000 deduction, that increases their tax liability from $80,000 to $30,000. I mean, that's a lot of tax savings and money they get back from a tax standpoint by doing the donor advised fund. And then they want to give it to their local church. So this is going to be part of their tithe every year, right? And so they're going to give about $5,000 to their church. Now you can give it to a church, a school, a nonprofit. If you want to be creative, you can kind of set up your own 501c3. Again, we have to have a conversation personally on how you can do it, but you want to be creative. You set up your own 501c3. If it's a registered charity, then you can actually move that money from, so we get a tax write-off, right? And then give it to then the donor advises the fund, donor advised fund, to give it to then that 501c through that charity. And we know with charity from a tax standpoint, we have none. So it's definitely ways that you can definitely help yourself if you want to, or help others. But for them, they give it to their church. And they don't want to give all $50,000 to the church at one time. So they said they're going to give, $5,000 a year to the church. So again, it's a way for you, if you have money that you want to give away, but you want to have a way to get an immediate tax benefit because of it, you want to do the donor advised fund. And since it's in your name and you're able to advise it, you still have all the power to make decisions on how the money's invested and who gets the money, compared to a charitable trust where all the power is gone. So again, that's a way for you to keep the power, get all the write-offs using a donor advised fund. And with the big, beautiful bill, you're now able to kind of have that wiggle room. So any questions on a donor advised fund and how a donor advised fund works? And has anybody used a donor advised fund before? You guys can put a 1 in the chat if you guys have used a donor advised fund, or if you have a donor advised fund for yourself. I imagine a few of my clients in here would say so, but just in general. Okay, no, this education then, yeah. So definitely for people that do not have a donor advised fund, especially for you guys that are giving money, especially to your church from a tithe or offering standpoint, it's a way for you guys to get more tax deductions, right? Because typically, if we tithe, we're doing whatever percentage we are, like on like a month to month, week to week, or month to month basis. But if you set it up in a donor advised fund, have it invested, kind of grow over the year, and then those earnings put into the donor advised fund and give it to the church at the end of the year, you just get write-offs. So let's just say, for instance, to make up we're doing $100 a week, right? $100 a week, each week to our church. Once we do that, that $100 is a write-off, right? But what if we did that $100 in the donor advised fund every single week? And then, of course, over time it grows. So for the year, that $100 a month, which is basically $5,000 a year, that $5,000 now turns into $8,000 because we have market appreciation. Now, instead of writing off $5,000, I'm writing off $8,000. Right? So this allows you to kind of have more write-offs because you take advantage of market appreciation. So and that's what we do. Like we definitely tithe through our church. But we tithe through our church via a donor advised fund. So we put money in literally on a week-to-week basis. That money grows, mostly in cryptocurrency and in our aggressive portfolio, because I am, of course, aggressive, right? And so then at the end of the year, it's just a lot more money we're able to write off because we did it through the donor advised fund compared to doing it to our church impact here in Jacksonville on a week-to-week basis. So yeah, again, if you guys want more detailed way how to do that, but definitely something to look into. You get the same write-offs, but you get more write-offs because it's more money because you get the appreciation. So that is a donor advised fund, and we are able to do that and have less restrictions because the big, beautiful bill. All right, QBI. So QBI is qualified business income deduction. So very important. Anybody that is a business owner, you need to be taking advantage of the QBI. Before, it was some restrictions involved, but now it's basically the wild, wild west. So the big, beautiful bill is big and beautiful, but at the same time, it allows people to do things that before they couldn't do because, of course, they want to give people less restrictions, less regulations, and this is definitely doing that. So QBI is qualified business income deduction, so that it allows business owners to deduct up to 20% of their business income on their taxable return. So if I have a Schedule C, I'm a sole proprietor, right? So I have a W-2 job, but I have a gig, like an Uber driver or something like that. I put that on my Schedule C. Or if I do real estate, it should be on your Schedule E, but if you put that on your Schedule C. If I have an LLC, then also I qualify for the QBI. If I'm an S Corp, where my entity is an LLC, which we recommend, but my business is taxed as a S corp, not an LLC, I qualify. And also if you're a partnership. If you're a C corp, the C corp is when you make basically $3.3 million or more. That's when the advantages of a C corp is better. Then of course you don't qualify, but most individuals fall into that sole proprietorship, LLC, S corp, or partnership. So nearly all small business owners, as long as you have pass-through income, right? Pass-through income, not W-2 income when we're working, but like again, a side job. If I'm an Uber driver making an extra $15,000 a year, that income passes through the business to me. So then I qualify for it. If I'm a W-2 employee, it doesn't pass through a business and then it goes directly to you. Now, what you guys can negotiate is that you go from being a W-2 employee to being a contractor, and they pay you a 1099. So I know a lot of companies, because of cutbacks that they're doing or not wanting to pay health insurance, they're asking individuals, do they want to be taxed as a W-2 employee or now as a 1099? If you have that opportunity, talk to your local tax preparer, or if I'm helping you, your tax strategist, definitely run the numbers to see if it's better for you to go from a W-2 to a 1099, because instantaneously, since it's passed through, you're going to get 20% deduction off the bat. Also, you're under the IRS income limits, which is $191,000, or if you're married, $383,000 for the full deduction of 20%. If you make less than that, you're fine. If you make more than that, you'll get a deduction, but it won't be the full 20%. So it's less paperwork, less forms. And Katrina, who's on here, she can attest doing the QBI. Sometimes people don't do it because there's so much forms and so much extra work that the CPA has to do. But it's less paperwork and less forms, so it makes it easier for the person preparing and filing your taxes. And less work means more efficiency for you guys. But then it also ensures that all Schedule C filers, if you're self-employed, if you're sole proprietors, they get the 20% deduction. So just use an example. If I make $100,000, if I'm a real estate agent, I make $100,000. Before anything else, I instantly get a $20,000 deduction. So that means he or she would pay $80,000 before any other deductions. So very, very important for anybody here who has a side business, who has some type of income that's not tied to the W-2. Talk to your tax preparer. Talk to your tax strategist, if you guys allow me to help you, to make sure that you are taking advantage of the QBI before. Again, I'm not gonna say it's frowned upon, but because of the paperwork and the regulations to do it, a lot of people didn't take advantage of it. And I would, a lot of times we didn't have clients take advantage of it because it didn't help, basically. But now, since it's very, very easy because of the less regulations, the less paperwork, it's just there instantaneous, basically no questions asked. Now, we don't want to be frauding, right? So we want to make sure we have a business. We can't say we got a business making $100,000 and that's a lie. So you want to be accurate and honest with the IRS, but still, with your income, though, you are able to get now 20%, which is amazing. So cool. Any questions QBI wise? So anybody that is a business owner or have a side business, or is a W-2 employee that does like tutoring on the side or something on the side, any retirees that have real estate on the side, any questions on the QBI? And people on here, put a 1 in the chat if you have used the QBI when you filed your taxes before. It's a lot easier now, so everybody should. But has anybody used the qualified business income deduction before, which is a QBI? You can put a 1 in the chat. I had a question. How about the money to spend on the business? So Gene, good question, but what do you mean? Do you have an income phase out for schedule? Yeah. Well, so if you're making more. If you're making more than that, basically 400,000, then yes, you don't get as much QBI. But then, of course, if you're making that much more money, then you should be, having yourself taxed as an S corp, not an LLC or sole proprietorship. Give yourself a salary in between 30 to 50%, so that you don't pay that 15.3% tax. You should be doing the Augusta rule. You should be doing the home office deduction. You should be taking advantage of now the 100% depreciation with your vehicle. So even though you don't meet that QBI because you make more money than that 400,000, then there's other things you can do to bring down your tax liability, hopefully more than 20%. So I hope that that helps answer the question, Gary. And congratulations for all the success. So Gene had another question. If I spend 50,000, only make yeah. So it's based on your AGI. So yeah. So if your AGI again is 100,000 and it's 80,000, that's just a deduction. So anything that you deduct after that, if it's IRS code 162, fair, reasonable, necessary, and ordinary in the pursuit of income for your business. So if those write-offs are justifiable, then yes, you can also use a QBI and then also other write-offs on top of that. So cool. I hope that answers your question. Great question, you guys, and keep the questions coming. All right, so a few more things. Another thing as well, we have a lower tax bracket that stays. So before, the lower tax brackets that we had the last 8 years was going to go away. So a person that makes 94, this is married filing jointly. We get the question a lot, if I'm married, should I be married filing jointly, married filing single? Not a blanket recommendation, but I typically tell my clients, married filing jointly is the way to go because you do get more tax, write-offs, or it's more tax favorable, in my opinion, to be married filing jointly than married filing single. But married filing jointly, if you make $94,000 to $200,000, our current tax bracket is 22%, and it stays there. If not for the tax bill, it was going to go back up to 25%. So, it used to be the 25% tax bracket. Now it's the 22% tax bracket. It's 3% savings. It doesn't seem like that much, but if I make $100,000, that's $3,000 over 10 years. Now, hopefully over time we get raises, right? But over 10 years, that's $30,000. $30,000 invested over 10 years should be $60,000 to $90,000. That's a lot of money. So by them keeping the tax brackets low like they are, this allows us to save more money and either spend more or invest more. If I make $200,383, it stays at 24%. It was going to go back up to 20% tax bracket. If I make $383 to $487, it stays basically the same. It doesn't go to 33%. It stays at 32%. If I make $487 to $731,000, it stays at 35, and then 731. 37,000, it stays. It's not at 39.6. Now, this was a contention, and this is one of the reasons why people thought that it would get held up, especially in the Senate. Now, the Senate, like the senator from Alaska, she got some pork. They call it pork with like extra money for her state and her district. But it's one of the things. Like one of the arguments were that a person making $731,000, they can afford to pay more taxes because they make more money. So like this is one of the reasons why people thought the bill was going to hold up, because for people making $731,000, I mean you're like the top 0.001% of income, right? So you're making more money than hundreds of people combined, but they end up keeping it in there. I actually thought myself personally that they was actually going to increase it back up to 39% to basically have the Democratic Party, not saying it's right or wrong, but kind of appeasing the Democratic Party, but they didn't. So I was actually surprised at that. So actually, if you make $731,000 or more, you still get that tax savings. So yeah. So tax brackets are the same. So for everybody, we are in general going to pay less taxes going forward because of that. All right. So then also how it helps for seniors. So standard deduction. So less taxable income. So now if I'm married filing jointly, I have a $29,000 standard deduction. It was $23,000. So basically it's $6,000 more. So for senior families, we get $6,000 more of a standard deduction. So if I don't itemize, then I get a standard deduction of $29,200. Plus, if I'm over 65, an extra $1,550 per spouse over 65. So a lot of money that I get to deduct standard. So and who knows, I just want to make sure, we all understand the difference between a standard deduction and itemized deduction. Do we know, if you don't know the difference, you want me to kind of explain the difference between the standard deduction and itemized deduction, put a 1 in the chat and I can explain that as well. Just to make sure everybody kind of understands, because it makes a big difference when you file your taxes. And if you're using like an H&R Block or whatever the case may be, you might be setting yourself in trouble. Okay. I'm married, filing separate, not single. I'm sorry, iPhone. Thank you, Pat. I said married, filing separate. That's fine. Ain't nobody being separated. Okay, well, okay, cool. So Katrina, you still here? Because Katrina's actually a CPA that actually we use. 'Cause as you know, we do tax strategies, but we outsource our CPA. Katrina, you still here? If so, you want to unmute yourself and tell
I'm
people.
sorry. Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah, so you want to explain to everybody?
Yeah, I'm still
Because you know
here.
you trusted from Detroit. You want to tell everybody the difference between standard deduction, itemized deduction.
Yeah, I think you pretty much explained it really well too, Mario. The standard deduction is the amount you get to keep tax free off the top of your income. That's the standard deduction based upon whatever your filing status is. The itemized deduction is if you can exceed that amount through your interest that you paid on your personal residence, the taxes you paid on your personal residence, some medical and dental costs that you may have had, charitable donations. When you add all of those things together, if that can exceed that standard deduction amount, then we'll go with the itemized deduction. It's an either or situation.
Yeah, and then not one put you on the spot, but typically, and again, it's not a blanket recommendation, but when do you tell seniors to do itemized compared to when you tell them to stick with the standard deduction?
It just depends. So usually we'll look to most people since since they raised the standard deduction limits, it's gotten really hard for people to exceed that amount unless you're in high tax property tax states or you have a larger home and you're paying a large interest rate. Most seniors don't. Most seniors have been in their homes for a long time. Maybe they pay them off. So usually they can't qualify for that item. It doesn't make sense for them to use the itemized deduction unless they have large charitable donations. Like a lot of times they'll be heavy tithers, heavy donators in that situation. But most times the standard deduction is going to be greater than the itemized deduction amount.
Okay, and last question, again, I put you on the spot, but I get this a lot for a senior who does a standard deduction. You know, why use a CPA like yourself or a tax strategy service like us compared to using an H&R Block? Can you kind of talk to the difference between like an H&R Block and a person who's professional like you?
Yeah, definitely. So I've actually just worked with a new client just recently. She's a retired professional, but she's been doing it on her own for several years. Went to H&R Block a few years. So, but she had her dad passed away. The siblings ended up with the property, and they split up the property. Sold, and they ended up splitting it up. So they wanted to come to a professional to help with that. And then as we did it, she was like, "Wait a minute! I thought I was going to have this huge tax bill," and she didn't. She was like, I actually got a refund. I've never gotten a refund in years. So she was like, can you review my prior year return and see what I did wrong? So I reviewed her prior year return. I found about another $1,500 in savings. And then she's like, how far can we go back? So you're usually leaving money on the table because if you're only taking, a lot of times people kind of diminish the industry because they're like, you're only plugging numbers in. Yeah, if you're not doing it right, you're only plugging numbers in. Usually we're trying to find you additional savings and asking additional questions to make sure that you're capitalizing on all the deductions and savings that you can take.
Yeah, very, very true. And I definitely second that. And sometimes a person being quote unquote cheap or frugal is actually costing them more money, right? So if you use H&R Block or use TurboTax and pay next to nothing or pay $200, yeah, you pay $200. You pay, Katrina or myself or somebody else maybe $1,000, but we save you $2,000 or $3,000. After you pay us, you're still saving a lot more money. You think about over a 5 or 10 year time period, that's tens of thousands of dollars you miss out on. So yeah, and again, I can vouch for Katrina, work with her. As you guys know, we do tax strategies, and she'll be the outside firm that we use to actually audit our tax strategies to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. She has a very successful practice in Detroit. So yeah, so thank you, Katrina. I definitely appreciate that.
Thank you, Mario.
All right, cool. So yeah, so that's that. And Ms. McDaniel, you had a question in the chat. Yeah, so now it's $6,000 more. So the standard deduction is now $6,000 more, or extra $6,300. So yeah, so that's that. And then also health expenses relief. Expenses 7.5 AGI, so it's still deductible. It was some individuals that wanted to decrease that, but now that allows you to have more write-offs. So if you have long-term care, A lot of policies right now are going up dramatically because insurance companies 15 years ago miscalculated the cost of long-term care. And with medical expenses going up, the cost of nursing homes, home health care has went up dramatically. So those premiums are going up dramatically. They're basically skyrocketing. So now you can write off some of that. Also your prescriptions and Medicare premiums as well. Also something to kind of combat that is doing an HSA account. So anybody who is working right now, strongly recommend if you have a high deductible healthcare plan that you do a HSA. An HSA is where you put $4,000 if you're single, $8,000 if you're married into that account. It's a tax deduction. So it's like putting it into a retirement account. So if I make $100,000, I'm married, I put $8,000 in my HSA, I'm taxed at $92,000, not on $100,000. But all that money grows tax-free. So all that money grows tax-free, and we can take it out for anything we want to, medical related. Premiums, prescriptions. I tell a story a lot. I had a client. They had two children back to back. So the husband and wife decided to do a mommy makeover, and they used the money in their HSA account over 3 years because they did $8,000 a year. It grew to about $32,000, and they used that $32,000 to pay for the mommy makeover. Right. So they allowed that money. So they got a tax deduction when they put it in. It grew tax free. And now it's the mommy makeover. So you can definitely use an HSA account to kind of help with the rise of healthcare expenses. Now, last two slides, because it is controversial. So we had some great things in the big, beautiful bill, but also some things we want to look at from a controversial standpoint. Well, actually, before I jump ahead, any questions with the center deduction or the health expenses one? I don't want to jump ahead before the controversial stuff as we have a few more minutes, but any questions there? 65. So great question, Mr. McDaniel. The age is 65. You think about it as Medicare, right? So Medicare age is 65. Social Security age is 62, and you can take your Social Security at age 62. And actually, I'll talk about this as well, just real quick. If you have any questions about Social Security, when to take it, right? So the rule of thumb for Social Security is that you take your Social Security, at 70, right? So that's because you get the most money month to month if you take it at 70. I am the total opposite, right? I tell people once you retire or once you don't have that income anymore, take it as early as possible. Take it at 62. 3 reasons why. Number one, tomorrow's not promised. And once we pass away, we can't pass down our Social Security. If I'm married, if it's 2 people getting their Social Security and one person passes away, the surviving spouse, they can't get their Social Security and their spouse who passed away Social Security. It stops. Literally, unfortunately, I had a client pass away last week. The spouse's Social Security is less. And he's saying, well, hey, what's going to happen? I'm like, well, unfortunately, your Social Security that you're getting now, that's going to be gone. You're going to take your spouse's Social Security because you can't get both. So nobody knows but God in the future, so take it at 62. Number 2, because of inflation. Even though Social Security goes up each year, the cost of Social Security does not go up like inflation does, right? So if we're kind of letting it kind of sit there each year, not taking advantage of it, we're losing money because once we start taking it out, buying power-wise, it's going to be less than what it is today. So it's losing money with inflation. And number 3, even if we don't need the money, take it. Because if we don't need the money, we can literally have it grow in an investment, right? If we get $2,000, or let's say $1,500 to make the math easier. It's $1,500, and I'm getting that on a month-to-month basis. That's $18,000. Between let's say I was going to take it at 65, when I get on Medicare. Between 62 and 65, that's a lot of money. That's $54,000. That $54,000 invested properly, that should be in between $65,000 to $80,000. Now we have a lot more money that we can spend by taking it early and having the money grow with an investment standpoint. And at the same time, heaven forbid, if we were to pass away, because that money's in our investment account, that passes down to the family compared to if we didn't take the Social Security, the family would have got nothing. So for those 3 reasons, we recommend to take it as early as possible. Any questions with Social Security? Just so you guys can put that in the chat. I know I just ranted there for a few minutes, but it just and like I said, it pains me because the conversation I had with a client, like I said, passed away last week, talking to their spouse, it just out of nowhere. I mean, she was 63 years old and just had a heart attack and died. It's just horrible. Like life happens, nobody knows but God the future. And like now, they had all these plans because they was able to do things with the 2 Social Securities and their pension and their retirement. And now, he'll be able to do things, but his retirement won't be as comfortable. And here it is, his wife literally worked since she was 21 years old. She retired last year. She literally worked for 40 years. She worked for 40 years, and 40 years of working, she only got literally 1 year's worth of Social Security. It's painful. I know Social Security is what it is, and a lot of other countries don't have it, or they get not as much as we do. But I just wish there was a better way that we would be able to benefit more, because nobody knows but God the future from a passing away standpoint. So it's just sad. Sad. Okay. Yes. So Tony. Yes. So the presentation, you'll definitely get a replay of this tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Will be text and email to you. Tony. So my man Sean from Jacksonville. I have a client that is 67, still working as an owner-operator 1099. Would you recommend it? Yes. So yes. So if you're working, you can't make more than $23,000 a year until you hit full retirement age. Full retirement age is 66 and 8 months. So for this person who's 67 years old, they can still make as much as they want getting that 1099 and still get their full Social Security. So Sean, I would say as soon as you get off the phone in the Zoom call, you call that client and strongly recommend to take Social Security now. So you think about, they was probably going to wait till they're 70, I imagine, right? So if they wait till this, let's say their Social Security is going to be, he or she's 67, it's probably going to be about $2,000 a month. That's $24,000 a year. Over 3 years, that's $72,000. That's $72,000 extra dollars. And from an investment standpoint, it could be as much as $100,000. That's a lot of money that they're going to have at their disposal by taking it now compared to waiting to 70. So yes, Sean, as soon as we get off this Zoom, call them, run the numbers. They are making a huge financial mistake right now, not taking it today. Can you give those key points why to take? Mr. Stewart, yeah. So get the 3 reasons why for Social Security. Number 1, tomorrow's not promised, right? So if I have 2 spouses taking Social Security, one spouse passes away, Social Security only pays the highest, right? So whoever was getting the most Social Security, they keep that. The person making the least amount of Social Security, that goes away. So tomorrow's not promised, so we don't want it to go away. Number 2, inflation, right? So each year we get a cost of living adjustment with Social Security, but the cost of living adjustment is not nearly as much as inflation, right? Real inflation is about 5% a year if you include healthcare costs and regular inflation. They say inflation is 2.5%, but if you include healthcare costs and people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, healthcare is on the top of the mind more than a person in their 40s. Right? So because of real inflation, you are actually losing money each year buying power wise by having it stay with them compared to you getting it. So that's number 2. And then and number 3, I know, bro. I'm gonna put the PowerPoint back on. So thank you. And then number 3, the reason why we recommend it is because from an investment standpoint, you would just make a lot more. So if you don't need the money, we still take it and have that money grow. And if it grows, of course, then you beat inflation, you just have more. So again, using that same example of option number 1, if I am 62 and I don't take it at 62, I take it at 65, getting $1,500 a month, which is $18,000 a year. Of course, like I said, over 3 years, $54,000. That could be $54,000 to $75,000 for the invested property of money that you get compared to wait to 65. And then, like I said, if I was to pass away between those 3 years, that money's in my investment account, gets passed down to the family, compared to if it was with Social Security, nobody gets it. So for those 3 reasons, that's why I recommend a person to take their Social Security as early as possible. Now, again, it's $23,000. That's the limit. So if you're making more than $23,000, then you're going to get penalized. For every $2 that you're making, you're going to get penalized $1. So that's something to think about. Or you talk to a tax strategist like myself. If you're, we can find some ways to make that income go down so you're under that $23,000 mark after age 62. excuse me, if after age 62, and if you do it that way, then of course, then we get our full Social Security. So yeah, and also another thing, Social Security is earned income. We get this a lot. So if I have a pension, if I'm getting a pension, then that doesn't apply to how much you can get from a Social Security standpoint. It is earned income. So somewhere where I'm punched the time clock. So if I'm punching the time clock working, then that $23,000 number is what I want to look at. But if I get a pension that's $24,000 a year or $30,000 a year, my pension, that won't affect Social Security. Or if I'm taking money out of my IRA. So if I'm taking distributions out of my IRA or out of my 401k where I pay taxes, that's fine, and it's income, but it's not earned income like I'm punching the clock. All right, cool. So a couple of the not so good things about the bill, you definitely want to share this to your clients, or you need to know this yourself. So number one, cuts the premium tax credits under the Affordable Care Act. So Obamacare or the Federal Affordable Care Act, they give us subsidies, right? So depending on our income, right? Let's say my health insurance is $1,000, and I can, from an income standpoint, the government's going to give me $600 to kind of cover my health insurance. Well, now they're cutting those premiums, meaning that if you're qualified for $600, you might get $300, you might get $200, which means now you got to come out of your pocket to pay for health insurance. Well, the whole reason behind the Affordable Care Act was to help people who can't pay for health insurance pay for the health insurance. Because if I have a decision, right, if I'm a working family and I got this extra $400, that's not here anymore, now I got to either come out my pocket $400 to pay for health insurance or to pay for food or a field trip for my child. I'm probably doing stuff for my child and paying for health insurance and said, okay, if I go to emergency room, then I'll just kind of deal with it later. And then, of course, something happens and now it's debt. And that perpetual debt just keeps on going and going and growing and growing. So not being political, but one thing I do not like about the bill, I really wish that they did not take this away, because now for middle class and even upper middle class families, they're going to have to make a decision with the extra money that they were getting, they're not getting anymore. Should I come out my pocket to now pay for health insurance, you providing food for the table, doing extra activities for my children, or investing, right? And because of people being short-sighted in nature, which I totally understand, a lot of people are going to not have health insurance. The Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, estimated that 7.6 million people will lose their health care because of this. And that's just unfortunate. So I know they gave a lot of tax cuts to us business owners and to the wealthier people in the world, which is fine. But I just wish it was a better way for them to protect everybody and not the wealthy. But conversation for another day. So it's going to be higher monthly healthcare premiums. So what are health insurance companies going to do? They know that more people are going to drop their coverage, go to the emergency room, and the health insurance company is going to foot the bill. So everybody who has group health insurance, just know next year it's going to go up. Now, every year group health insurance goes up anyways. But just understand, in a few months, it's going to go up more than usual. If you have an individual policy, that individual policy, I talked to a person who's an underwriter. He thinks that it's going to go up by an extra 10%. Usually health insurance premiums go up by 4 or 5%. For all my help, like Terrence, all my health insurance people, put in the chat, like, usually what's the average of health insurance going up each year. I believe it's 5%. Health insurance is not my forte. But for my health insurance agents, you can put in the chat how much it usually goes up a year. But my friend who's an underwriter, I talked to him last week. He's thinking, he underwrites policies for State Farm. So he does it, right? He told me that he thinks that individual policies are going to go up by at least 10 to 15%. So if I had a $1,000 policy, it's going to now be $1,100 or $1,150. So this is something in the bill that I really wish that they would have got right, but they did not. It's going to again affect middle age, middle class. Yeah, 10%. Yeah, 10 to 15%. Marvin. So 10 to 15%. Usually, again, most health insurance policies go up by 5%. In my experience, but my friend that's an underwriter for State Farm, he said that anywhere between 10 to 15%. So we are going to all have to pay more health insurance because of it. So that's that. Also, as well, increase IRS compliance, which is a good thing, right? So because of that, the Democratic Party, which I'm not saying is wrong, the Democratic Party said you got to give us something. So they actually gave more money to the IRS to do audits, because you have a lot of people that are doing bad things, that are unethical, say that they're making 100,000 when they made 10,000. That's why you're still seeing now those people with the PPP loans getting arrested 5 and 6 years later, well, 5 years later, because they lied, because it takes the IRS time to find stuff. So now I'm not saying it's bad, but the Democratic Party definitely wanted some checks and balances to make sure it wasn't fraud going on. And so it's a lot more money to the audited department, which means small businesses and Schedule C filers, they are going to be scrutinized more. Because, of course, the people with all the money, the big corporations, they got auditors, they got CPAs for days, so they're fine. So it's very, very important. Anybody who is a small business owner and a Schedule C filer, please have your documentation in order. Anything you're doing from a tax write-off standpoint, document. Very important. We have a system called Wave Apps, and you can put this into the chat, my moderators. Wave Apps, WAVEAPPS. It is a bookkeeping system that we use. If you guys want to set it up for you guys, if you want us to kind of help you categorize it, it helps kind of document everything for you guys. If you're doing the Augusta rule, which I recommend every business owner do, you need documentation. You need your board of directors. You need your meeting minutes. Again, for our clients, we do this for them, so they don't have to worry about it. But it's very, very important you document everything. If you do the home office deduction, you need to have a lease agreement with your business to you personally, so that you're leasing a part of your business. If you're doing a home office deduction, and now you can write off up to 50% of your utilities, up to 50% of your cable, you need to have those bills in the business, not personal. Because if it's paid through the personal account, is it really a business activity? Right? So all those things from a documentation standpoint. So I wouldn't be surprised if many people become audited and never got audited before, even though they're doing the right thing, just because of the more money that's being given to the IRS for auditing. So it's very, very important. Everybody on this call, if you're a business owner, if you're Schedule C, or you're doing anything from a non-W-2 standpoint, you meet with a qualified tax professional. Nothing against a person who works at H&R Block, but not an H&R Block, not a TurboTax, a CPA, a tax strategist like myself, to make sure everything you're doing is documented. Because if you're doing things right, even if everything goes clear with the audit, it's still time consuming. It's still, I didn't get audited. So about 6 years ago, I got examined. I had just a huge increase. The market went up dramatically in 2019. So I had like a huge increase in pay. And we got examined. And I had to send like receipts and stuff. It was just agonizing. Again, it was fine. I ain't doing anything wrong. But it just, like, from a time standpoint, nobody wants to deal with that. So have your paperwork in order. Every single thing you do from a tax write-off standpoint has to be justified. Have your paperwork in order. So I know that's a rant there, but yeah. Okay, cool. That is that. I think that's it. Oh, last thing again, the deficit. So we are adding $4 trillion to our deficit. So I know politicians talk about reduce the debt. The same politicians that talk about that are the same politicians who passed the bill. But yeah, so what does that mean, right? So it might trigger automatic spending cuts. So I'm not sitting here saying that Social Security is going to be reduced. I'm not saying that Medicaid or Medicare is going to be reduced. What I'm saying is some of the spending that they're doing now, like HUD, for instance. Anybody who does real estate, you guys, might be doing HUD housing, right, where people are renting your property and HUD is paying for it. They already reduced HUD. They're probably going to reduce it more over the next few years, right? They haven't came out, but they already reduced it before the bill. So again, like those government programs that help individuals from a HUD standpoint, affordable housing. Also, if I'm doing real estate, I have a way to make sure the government pays me, right, to have it. Affordable housing, if you guys are doing affordable housing and you're doing real estate, that's probably going to be cut as well. Social Security, I don't believe that's going to be cut. They're probably going to increase the cap Right now, the cap is 156,000. So if you make more than 156,000, you don't pay more into Social Security. I think they're going to increase that. So if you make more, you're going to pay more in Social Security. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just know that that's probably going to be. And then from a Medicare standpoint, it is a couple people in one political party that wants Medicare to be from 65 to 67. Right? So if that happens over the next few years, then of course that's going to hurt individuals who are now 61, 62, where they don't get their Medicare till 67 instead of 65. So it's a lot of great things in this bill, but there's also some things in this bill that I don't agree with. And adding $4 trillion to a national debt when we're already trillions of dollars into debt already, that doesn't help. All right, then, with 5 minutes to spare, what questions do we have for me? Let's see here. Yeah, so Sean, we could definitely help them from a tax strategy standpoint as well. So yeah, we could definitely help. Cool. So wave apps. What does it take to sections? Yeah. We definitely you can refer them out to us, Sean, from a tax strategy standpoint. We could definitely help. Make sure that they're squared away with their taxes well. I mean, certified financial planner. We do, of course, investing, financial planning, money management, and tax strategies. So we can definitely help with that as well. Any other questions or any kind of things that you heard about the bill, right? Any of those myths or rumors are out there that you want me to debunk if they're true or false? We have 5 more minutes. I want to be respectful and get out of here at 1:30. So any other questions, concerns about the bill, or questions in general from a financial standpoint? Because the worst question is the one not asked. If you guys thought this was good information, let's put a 1 in the chat. So if you guys thought this was good information that you can apply or that you can apply to your clients, if you're a professional, put a 1 in the chat. I just want to make sure, we gave good information. All right, cool. Okay, cool. All right, cool. All right. So we gave some good information. Cool. Put a 2 in the chat. Put a 2 in the chat if you think this is information that you can apply to either your personal life or you can apply to your business. So put a 2 in the chat to make sure this is information that you got today that you can apply personally or in your business. All right, cool. All right. Doing my job. Yes, doing my job. My job is to educate. 1 and 2. All right, Charlotte, 1 and 2. I know, right? And Charlotte, I'll make sure going forward, I don't say married, filing, separated. I'm gonna say married, filing, single. That's like oxymoron. Well, I guess you can be married and separated too, right? Because if you're not divorced, then I don't know how that works. Katrina, you maybe answer that question. I don't know how that works. Like you've been separated, and can you still file? I don't know how that works, but married, filing, separated. That's funny. Good info on the big, beautiful bill. Awesome, cool. All right, so it's 1:28. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them. But, of course, as you guys know, I'm a strong believer. If it wasn't for the Lord Jesus Christ, we wouldn't be here today. So I'd just like to lead us out in prayer so we can bow our heads as we close out in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for your love. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for being in our lives. Thank you for allowing us to walk and talk and have eyes and ears and just be healthy. May you bless everybody on this call. May you bless their friends, their families, their loved ones, their businesses, their children, their grandchildren, and bless everybody in their family. May you touch us. May you bless our leaders. May you bless the people in our country and the world who's making decisions so that we can be a better place, a better community, and just a better earth as it is in totality. But continue to be in our lives, continue to pour down a blessing upon us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, I wish I had some church in here. Awesome sauce. So if you have any final questions, you can definitely ask them. So as you guys know, for individuals who help me manage their money, we have our coaching call the first and third Wednesday of the month. And for the individuals in our Relax Estate program that allows us to help them with estate planning, we have our coaching call the last Wednesday of the month. So we will see you guys shortly. So the coaching call, it'll be August 6th for everybody. And then for specifically our Relax Estate subscribers, we have our Relax Estate coaching call the last Wednesday of the month as well. You're going to email this. Oh yes, Mrs. West. Yeah. So Mrs. West. Yeah. So the actual this copy of the recording will definitely email and text this to you, Mrs. West. So yes, you'll get this at 12 o'clock tomorrow via email and via text as well. Yeah. And then for our partners, Relax State Partners, July 30th at 12 o'clock. We talk about estate planning and growing your business. Any other questions for me? No, thank you, Mrs. West. Thank you.
The other question I had was just for the trust.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah. Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Now,
Oh, yeah.
wondering because you told us lawyers.
I'm sorry. I'm hearing every other word. Say that one more time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, no, what I was saying, like, again, when we get a client for the trust,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least on our portal,
Yes.
I was wondering if you can at least use we're not lawyers, we just kind of middleman for if I got 3 clients, they're all asking me, okay, what kind of lawyers are you using?
Yeah. So 2 things. Number 1, you have a support specialist. So that question you want to your support specialist
Yes.
is either Bia, Karen, or Grace. Email them. But we do have paralegal service, right? So if they have questions about they want to talk to one of our paralegals about their trust and kind of how they did their trust, they can
Right.
definitely meet with the paralegals. As far as attorney, so we have internal attorneys on retainer that creates all of our documents. So our attorneys create the power of attorneys, the will documents, the trust documents, the quick claim deeds. I don't know if they need a quick claim deed, but our lawyers create the quick claim deeds as well, so they can move the money from their name. I mean, they can move their house from their name
Right.
into their name and their trust, so that the house doesn't go through probate. And by the way, people on this call, if you guys do a trust, make sure you do a quick claim deed and move your house from your name into your name in the trust. Because just because you have a trust, if you don't do the quick claim deed that moves the house into the trust, your house still goes through probate. So unfortunately, we see sometimes people have a trust, but they don't do
Right.
the quick claim deed. So it's very, very important that your clients also do the quick claim deed, and they can do it, of course, through the portal through you, right? Where our lawyers will create the quick claim deed for them. And we file it for them as well. If you're in Duval County, we give it to you. You file it with the clerk of courts. But if you're outside of Duval County, we actually file it and record it for you, or for your clients. So they don't have to do it. Our platform does it for them with the quick claim deed. So yes, all the documentation is done by our licensed state attorneys, and we could do it. The license in every single state but Louisiana. So Louisiana, they go by Napoleon law, not by common law. So if you're domiciled in Louisiana, unfortunately, you can't use our platform. But in all of the 49 states, they're licensed. So all the documentation is there. Yes, yeah, Tyrone. We do wills. I think.
Yeah, what I was saying, like, can you hear?
Yes. Go ahead.
I was saying, like, do they have pay?
I'm sorry. You're breaking up on me. Is it easier? You want to type it into the chat? Is that easier for you, or on your phone? Because I'm hearing every other word.
How about no? I think it's my phone. I think it's my phone.
Okay.
What I was saying, like, do they have to pay more? Do they have to pay for it?
So yeah. So the paralegal, yes, it is $100 an hour. So if they want the paralegal to kind of help them go through everything, then yes, it is an extra $100 an hour. So the cool thing about the platform, though, because how the documentation is set up by attorneys already, the documentation is created. So like from a plug and play standpoint, the questionnaire that you have that you can give to your client, or when they put the information in, that's everything, right? It's like the successor trustee, the power of attorney, who's the co-trustee, everything is very, very easy when they go through the process. Also, have you went through the process yet? Have you done a trust yet? Or have one of your clients done a trust yet? So if the answer is no, then like literally with the platform, each time that they answer a question, the next question gets answered via video. So they fill out, so like, it might be the beneficiary section. They click a link and it gives them a video of what a beneficiary is, what's the difference between a primary beneficiary and a secondary beneficiary, what percentage, like, so we basically kind of answer questions for them as they go through the process. So it's very, 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 very easy to go through the process. And once it's done, because how the documents created by our state attorneys is there, they just have to just download it, print it, and then of course get it notarized, right? And then if you don't have a relationship with a notary, let me know, and I can definitely let you know a notary in your area who uses our platform that can definitely notarize things for you in your state to make it easier for you, and you guys can have some type of agreement, even compensation-wise as well. Does that kind of help answer that question? Okay, yeah, like I said, you're on mute now, so we'll put a 1 in the chat, and if not, then.
No, I said yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Cool.
Yes.
So how new are you on the platform? How many months have you been on the platform, or how many years? How new are you to the platform? And
it's going to be a month.
Yeah. Okay. Have you had your onboarding call yet with your onboarding specialist?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So whoever your onboarding specialist
Yes, I did.
Okay, cool. So whoever your onboarding specialist is, you definitely get in contact with them. And then also for the people who subscribed in May and in June, we have like an onboarding call, like a general onboarding call next Wednesday. So you'll get an email to that. So like that specific question, and then we can make sure that gets answered more specifically if you want to. And that call will be next Wednesday as well. All right, so cool. All
right.
Yeah. And thank you for using.
Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
Thank you. Another question, does it skip probate if one dies and they are married and the house is in both of their names? Yeah, so that's a great question, Sean. So if I have both my names, so if I have a trust and I have and we're co-trustees, right? It means ownership. So a trustee is basically I own the trust. I am an owner of a trust. Just like if I have a bank account, I am a joint owner of a bank account. If I have a joint account, if I have a trust, if I have co-trustees, we both own it. We both own that house. So if one person passes away and it's two co-trustees, husband and wife or spouse and spouse, whatever the case may be, then, the person who's surviving, the person that's still alive, it's still their property, right? They still own that house, right? They still own it because they are, they were on the deed, right? If there's two people on the deed, moved over to the trust, so it's still ownership there. So they still own it. So then it going from the trust to the beneficiaries is when a person, when both people pass away. So when both people pass away, then it goes, since those two trustees are passed, then whoever the beneficiaries are, then it goes to them, and that avoids probate. So yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question. Any other questions? And yes, Mr. Brown, we do wills for you specifically because you allowed me for now 13 years to invest you and your wife's money. Let's have a conversation because for you, it's better to do a trust instead of a will because you have properties. So like if you do a will by itself, if something happens to you and Mrs. Brown, it goes through probate. And again, you don't want your properties to go through probate. And so it means your daughter, right? And congratulations. I know she got married. So, your daughter, she has to go through the process of getting those properties out of probate. It's a hassle. It's costly. You're going to pay, because I know you're in Duval County, you're going to pay an attorney at least $2,500 to get out of probate. And then, of course, she has to pay the cost of your properties from a cost standpoint as well. So by doing a trust and then having that quick claim deed, not a ladybird deed, but a quick claim deed where we pass it from, the trust to you guys. If you guys pass away, the trust to her, then that's just better. Then also you can put stipulations, right? You can say, hey, you know, something happens, you want all the money to go to your daughter, not the daughter and your new son-in-law, right? Or you know, if something happens to her, she can only put the money into her biological children. I don't think it's a blended family, but still, you're able to put more stipulations with a trust compared to a will. So for you, Mr. Brown, definitely, yes, we do wills, but in your situation specifically, because of your properties, it's better to do a trust, in my opinion. I'm here till 2:00, you guys. I know I always say 1:30 because I want to be respectful of your time, but while I'm here, I don't have an appointment till 2:15, so y'all got me for another 10 minutes. So if you guys have other questions, you can definitely take yourself off of mute, and I can definitely answer those questions for you. Yeah, thank you. Yep. And again, Mr. Brown, congratulations as well. Congratulations. So, cool. Any other questions? And you guys can unmute yourselves if you want to talk, or if you want to put into the chat if you have any other questions. And it could be about anything. It could be about finances, your business, the trust.
Can you hear me, Mario?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, I'm in a rural areas, right? But just for clarity's sake, so if they're on the deed, does that avoid probate if one passes away?
Yeah. So two separate things, right? So if both their names are on the deed, when they create their trust, they want to do a quitclaim deed. And with the quitclaim deed, since both their names are on the deed, they both have to sign the deed over from their name to the trust. And in the actual trust documentation, when you list your properties, right, that's your joint property, right? And then you can clearly say in additions and restrictions part of the trust, right? Because it is an additions and restrictions part of the trust. Just clearly say, something happens, since we're both on the deed, it goes to the co-trustee. Very, very easy. You don't have to put that in there if you don't want to, but if you want to kind of protect yourself or them protect themselves from one of their kids that are beneficiaries trying to get the house before them, they can put that. But if they're both, because they're both signing, right? So they're both signing. The only way that you would have to put that restriction or addition is that of one person on the deed, right? So let's say, for whatever case may be, husband and wife, husband was on the deed, wife wasn't. Then it's in the trust. They're both co-trustees though, but just to protect themselves from a child saying, hey, I'm the beneficiary, this person passed away, I have the house now. You want to put in additions restrictions part, the person that was not on the deed, it's their house. They have to pay property taxes. They make all decisions to the house until they pass away. And once they pass away, then it goes to the beneficiaries, such and such and such. So that's the kind of way to protect themselves if both names are on the deed. But if both names are not on the deed. But if one name is on, but if both names are on the deed, then they're fine because they're both co-trustees. So they both have ownership of the house and they both have ownership of the trust. Because if you're a trustee, you can make changes anytime you want to. So you own that trust just like it's a bank account, right? If you have a joint bank account, if one person takes out money, the other person, it is what it is. You can take it out, right? So since you're co-trustees, you have ownership of that. So you have ownership of that property or any other properties. So you don't have to disclose that. But if it's one person on the deed, then I would definitely recommend you disclose that in the additions and restrictions part of the trust, where if one person passes away, the other part, other person has ownership. They're responsible for property taxes, insurance, and all the other related costs to the house. And then when both pass away, then it goes to the beneficiaries that they name. Does that kind of help you with that?
So what I'm asking, I understand if they have a trust. That's not where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is from the standpoint of why you need a trust for a property. So if they don't have trust but both of their names are on the deed, if one person passes away, does that avoid probate for them if they don't have it?
Oh,
No
yeah.
trust, no will, no nothing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So if two people's on the deed, then whoever dies, now instead of two people owning the house, one person owns the house. So yeah. If there's two people on the deed, then that still avoids probate, and that's why sometimes people do a ladybird deed, which again I say a ladybird deed is a poor man's probate because you still pay more money over time. So some people might do a ladybird deed where they don't want to spend the money for a trust, which again is financially crazy to think about, right? We always talk about when you do the things the cheap way, it costs you more money than doing it the non-cheap way. But if a person was to do a ladybird deed, you could just do the ladybird deed, and the ladybird deed is like, okay, you give ownership to a person. So like, it's one person and they want to give it to their child. So they then deed it over to their child. The ladybird deed stipulation is that the owner who deeded it over, they can stay in it until they pass away. So it's a way for you to avoid probate because by doing the ladybird deed, once that person passes away, the child has the house. So that's great. It avoids probate in theory. But in actuality, because you did a ladybird deed, the child that got the house, they pay taxes as if they bought the house when the parents bought the house. So if the parents bought the house for $100,000, they died, it was worth $200,000, they sold it at $250,000, then they have to pay $150,000 of tax liability. Compared to if they did the trust and paid, whatever you charge for a trust, did the quitclaim deed and did it that way, when they died, the child sells the house for $250,000, but they're only taxed at $200,000 as if they bought it when their parent passed away. So now their tax liability is only $50,000, not $150,000. So you think about capital gains tax of 15%, instead of paying, almost $30,000 in taxes, they're paying close to, $7,000 in taxes. That's a $20,000 difference. So yeah, I saved, let's say I saved $2,000 in not doing a trust, but at the end of the day, I've paid $20,000 in taxes. How much money am I losing? How much money am I saving? I'm actually losing money, right? So that's why we don't recommend people to do ladybird deeds. Yes, that bypasses a trust as well, but because of the taxation of it, it's not the best way from an estate planning standpoint. If two people are on the deed, one person passes away, the person's on the deed, they definitely, it's still their house. They still have ownership of it. Does that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, it does. It does. Thank you. And then lastly, do you recommend a trust being a beneficiary for life insurance policy?
Oh, that just depends. Yeah, that's a blanket answer that I don't want to give to the public because it just depends on what they want to do, how they want to do it. So a life insurance policy is tax free, right? So of course through the trust, depending on how much they have asset wise, if they have less than $26 million, there won't be no taxes anyway. So unless it's a high roller, that doesn't matter. It's just the restrictions part. Right, because the restrictions on the trust you can put, so you can kind of restrict kind of how they get the money when they do. If it's no restrictions and the primary beneficiary is a person, they can use the money, spend it how they want to when they want to. So it really just depends. So it really depends on the situation. I've recommended clients to do the trust as beneficiary. And sometimes I recommended clients not to do the trust as beneficiary. It really just depends on how much assets they have. It depends on a lot of stuff. So I can't make that blank recommendation because I don't know the person's situation.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep. Any other questions? Again, I have up until about 2 o'clock before I have my 2:15. But any other questions for me? Again, you guys can either put into the chat or you can unmute yourself. Again, it could be about estates, finances, debt, credit, whatever the case may be in these last 10 minutes. Because I got the time. I usually don't have the time, but came back from vacation, so I cleared the calendar. All right, going once. Going twice. All righty. So that ends it then. Will you guys be blessed? I look forward to our next conversation. Peace.